guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another book review video. So let's talk about the 7 books that I read in July. It was a pretty good reading month. I would say overall it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be, considering I had so much travel to do and work stuff and a work conference. So I was glad that I did get the reading in that I wanted to, and I think a lot of it had to do with the challenge that we're doing in my book club. So for those of you who do not know, I do have a Facebook book club group. So if you'd like to join, I always have a link in the description box. So we did a challenge last month and I gave you the prompts and stuff that I did for the books that I read, and it was just a summer reading challenge. So this month we are actually going from July 15th through August 15th. So I'll tell you the books that I did read this month that were part of the reading challenge, and then I'll kind of finish up the reading challenge next month plus whatever books I read in August. So it's running from July 15th through August 15th because I kind of wanted it to span around the time of the Olympics. So the prompts are kind of inspired by the Summer Olympics. So if you want to have lots of fun at reading challenges, probably the next one we'll do, I'll probably take a break in September from creating one. I'll probably do one in October, maybe one that's kind of fall or Halloween related or something, but they seem to be very motivating to get people to read, and it's just fun to kind of come up with books. And honestly, like this particular challenge really helped me read books that were on my TBR list and ones that have been on there for a while. So anyway, so during this review video, like I said, I'll give you the prompts that were for the books that I read so far during the challenge. I have read actually so far, I think 5 of the I think there's 14 books, 12 or I think maybe 14 books that I have chose for the challenge so far. As always, I'm going to give you the Goodreads rating at the time of filming this video, because as you guys know, Goodreads ratings go up and down. So as of today, this is what the ratings are, and also my ratings. There will be no spoilers in this review video. I have just started getting books also through Book of the Month. So if you're interested in Book of the Month, I will have a link down below that give you for your first book for $5. And so far, I'm really loving the selections. If I have found a book through Prime Reading or Kindle Unlimited, I'll let you know. If you did not know, if you have Amazon Prime, there are certain books that you can read for free without having the additional subscription cost from a Kindle Unlimited. So Kindle Unlimited is a sub-cost service, but I love it. I find a ton of books through Kindle Unlimited. Not as many this month because I was really focused on the challenge, so I was really reading books that I already had, or books that I had saved, books that I've reserved on Libby, those types of things. But there are a lot of books through Prime Reading, so definitely check those out, and I'll let you know if I find anything through there. There'll be links to these services as well as links to each of the books' Goodreads page and Amazon page where you can read or purchase. And if you want to be friends on Goodreads, then let me know. My link is always down below. As always, I do my reviews based on the order that I read them, not the order of how I felt about them or liked them. I'll give you the description of the book, briefly tell you how I felt about it, if I recommend it, and also since this month was part of a challenge, I will give you the prompts for each book I chose. This month I had 4 5-star reads, 2 4 stars, and 1 2-star read. So let's get into the reviews. As always, my notes are right here in front of me, so if you see me kind of looking down, it's just because I do capture notes as I am reading books. That way I can do these reviews and kind of make sure I don't forget to tell you guys anything. Book number 1 was Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. My rating 5 stars, Goodreads rating 4.11 stars. I did this as an audiobook, so I forgot to mention that I did have Audible for a long time, but I found it really hard to listen to audiobooks. And so I kind of forgot about it. I forgot I was paying for it, which is always the bummer about subscription services if you forget that you have them. Completely forgot. And then by the time I remembered, I think I had received something in my email, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had like 4 or 5 credits, and so I canceled because I've been paying for it. Then I found out that you have to use your credits up before your month before whatever month you're in or wherever you're at in your subscription, that if you don't cancel it in that time, you'd lose those credits. And I paid for those credits, so I was not going to lose them. So I did purchase a few. I used all those credits up purchasing books that I was on the fence about and ones I didn't want to spend money for or wait on Libby for, and I just thought, you know what? And that ones that I also heard that were great audiobooks versus books that you read. So this was one of those particular books because I've been hearing a lot of things about this book. I'm on TikTok quite often, and most of the things I do watch and listen to on TikTok have to do with books. I have books and recipes, the two things that I do on TikTok. But I am huge, like I listen to a lot of book talk. And Butcher and Blackbird is talked about in almost every, or it was there for a while. I haven't seen it for a long time, but it was for like every other video I come across. It has a lot of controversial things, and we'll talk more about that after I give you the synopsis. But I did hear that if you wanted to pick it up, you should do it as an audiobook, especially if you are new to the genre, that you would be so drawn in by the book. So the genre is like a dark romance, but I kind of feel like it's a little bit less dark than what some of them are. So let's kind of talk about the synopsis, and then we'll go into my feelings. When a chance encounter sparks an unlikely bond between rival murderers, Sloane and Rowan, the two find something elusive, the friendship of a like-minded pitch-black soul. From small-town West Virginia to upscale California, from downtown Boston to rural Texas, the two hunters collide in an annual game of blood and suffering, one that pits them against the most dangerous monsters in the country. But as their friendship develops into something more, the restless ghosts left in their wake are only a few steps behind them, ready to claim more than just their newfound love. Can Rowan and Sloane dig themselves out of a game of graves, or have they finally met their match? So I don't know if I've ever had to say, like, check your trigger warnings during any book review video. I always figure if somebody is unsure about what type of content is in a book, then they will, check the trigger warning. So I don't typically say that. And I don't typically even read books where I feel like I need to stress that. But on this one, definitely check your trigger warnings, because I do feel like that I really should, I feel like I should really say that. So yes, they're murderers, but they, not to say that they should be doing it, but these are serial killers who kill other serial killers. So basically the people that they're killing are the worst of the worst, the worst people ever. They're not killing innocent people, but that doesn't make them innocent either, of course. I'm not making excuses for them, but that's basically what this is about. And I did, like I said, I listened to this as an audiobook, and if you choose to read this book, I cannot recommend the audio enough. I mean, it was amazing. The two actors that did this book, or narrators, whatever you call them for audiobooks, they were amazing. They had great chemistry. The banter was amazing. It was just a stellar performance. And I cannot say, well, until probably the last book that I read, but I feel like this was a performance. This definitely was a performance. So I also listened to another audiobook this month that was amazing, but this one was like a performance. So these actors, narrators were amazing. The presentation was by far probably the best that I have listened to. And I've heard nothing but amazing things about this book. So I was just super curious. But this book is classified as a dark romance. I have really no draw to that genre at all. I was just definitely really drawn in by the synopsis of serial killers killing serial killers. Because you guys know I used to read a lot of horror books. I still read a lot of thriller and suspense, but like Stephen King was my author years ago. Like I read a ton of Stephen King and loved it. So this is kind of like something I'm drawn into, but Stephen King books don't have the dark, steamy scenes, it doesn't have the spiciness in it. So there's a lot of it in there, which I think, I like I said, I just skipped through those like I always do. I just kind of skim over those, like whenever that was coming on. Like there was a whole chapter, that's all it was. And honestly, when I skipped that whole chapter, I did not miss anything. I already felt the chemistry between the two. It was definitely a slow burn romance. So if you were to compare it to like a contemporary or just a rom-com book, this was definitely a slow burn. Like it took a long time for the two. And for these couple chapters, and it really was just like maybe like it was one full chapter and like maybe just pieces of chapters throughout the rest of the book, and I just fast forwarded through them. I just have no interest in that type of genre, so I was easy to skip through and I did not miss anything. So again, you may wonder, like, how could you give it 5 stars if you had to skim through pages? But my rating of this book, as it always is, if I know I'm going into a genre of a book that is not one that I normally choose, I am not going to downgrade a rating because it contains stuff in it that I knew was in the book, and I can't, I don't know, for me, I cannot justify saying, okay, this is a 3-star read because I had to, not read 2 or 3 chapters of the book total because it had spicy sex scenes in it that I already knew were there. Because the rest of the book was great. It had a great, unique plot. It had great writing. It was easy to listen to. It flowed really well. Honestly, like, I could not find anything wrong with this book. It was just pure enjoyment. I mean, it was, and that's what I grade a book on. I grade a book on writing, plot, and just enjoyment and characters. And all of those things were stellar. So this was a 5-star read for me. It just may definitely not be a book for everyone, for sure. But I can honestly say really the only thing that I did not like about it were the spicy scenes. But again, I knew those were there. What I loved about this book, the plot was unique. The characters were so well developed and very, very interesting. I loved them all, even the side characters. It was the banter was just so witty, so hilarious. They were on point. It did not distract from the story. You know how sometimes banter can just really distract from the story? It did not. It just fit in seamlessly. I laughed out loud. I don't know how many times listening to it. And like I said, even though I skimmed through some of the scenes, I actually was pleasantly surprised there were not more of them, because that's one thing that I hear about the dark romance genre, is that it's really just 80% of the book. That's the reason why I probably would be very careful with which ones I do pick up. But this was dark and disturbing, but not in the kind of way that you have to stop reading it. So if you've read the book You, I think it's by Carolyn Kepnes or something like that. I know it's a TV show now. I've never watched the show, but I've read the first 2 books. I think there's 3 books in the series. I've read the first 2, and that's exactly how I felt about that book too. It's like, what am I reading? Like, this is so disturbing, so dark, but you can't stop. That's kind of how I felt about that. And this is actually a 3-book series, and I did pick up the 2nd book on Audible with one of my other credits. And I haven't started listening to it yet, but I think I definitely will continue on the series, and we'll just see how it goes. Book number 2, The Next Mrs. Parrish by Liv Constantine. My rating 3.5 stars, Goodreads rating 3.94 stars. This is the 2nd book in the series. I absolutely love Liv Constantine, but this one felt a little bit short compared to the first book, which was called The Last Mrs. Parrish. Is that right? I believe so. I'm really bad about titles of books. Okay, let's go ahead and go into the synopsis. Amber Patterson Parrish has come a long way from being an invisible wallflower. Her hard work and immaculate planning have paid off now that she's a prominent socialite, but that doesn't mean there haven't been bumps along the way. Less than a year since her husband Jackson's tax evasion scandal, Amber is still on top of the Bishop's Harbor community pecking order, free to do as she wishes while Jackson sits in prison. But that freedom is quickly coming to an end with Jackson getting released from prison. Amber's time and money is vanishing. Meanwhile, Daphne Parrish left Bishop's Harbor after her divorce from Jackson Parrish, swearing she would never go back. But when one of her daughters runs away from home, desperate to see her father, Daphne agrees to return for the summer to allow him to supervise visits. Once out of prison, Jackson swears he's a changed man, but Daphne knows all too well that he can't be trusted. When a ghost from Amber's past emerges from looking for revenge, the 3 of them find unlikely allies in one another, but who is playing who? When all is said and done, they'll have to fight tooth and nail for everything they have left in this zero-sum game. So let's always talk about first what I didn't like, because I like to end every review with a positive note if I can. I did felt like there was just not a lot happening through most of the book. It just really dragged on for me. Now, because the characters were familiar from the first book, and I did remember the first book rather well, But so because those characters were familiar, I was still able to stay interested in the book. Now, if somebody read this book and hadn't read the first one, it may be even more boring for them because they didn't know the characters. But because I was so invested in the book and interested, I just kept going. But I just felt like there was just so much not happening, and I was just so sad. But it was also, that's why I just kept comparing it to the first book, which I absolutely loved the first book. And I just kept thinking to myself, this is just not as good. This is not going very quickly. It just, I was not invested as much in the characters as I wanted to be, but I was invested enough to stick it through and to finish reading it. So those are the kind of things I didn't like about it, but what I loved is the writing. The writing flows really well. These authors are super talented. I love the multiple points of view. I feel like Liv Constantine, they do a great job at multiple points of view. Sometimes multiple points of view can be really super confusing and hard to follow, and they do a great job. In every one of their books, they do a fantastic job of it. And I enjoyed the ending and the outcomes for the characters. So by the time I got to the end, it kind of redeemed itself. And so I will pick up anything by these authors. Just so you know, Liv Constantine, I'm pretty sure they're sisters. It's two sisters that write the books. So that's why I say authors and they and them. But I was entertained by the book. I liked how it summed up. I liked the outcome. So it kind of redeemed itself at the end. And again, I will pick up anything by these authors. Book number 3, or I should say the rest of the books from here on out that I read for the rest of the month were part of the Summer Games Reading Challenge that I talked about earlier. So I actually have the physical copy of this book. It was one of my Book of the Month picks in April. So this one is Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. My rating, 5 stars. Goodreads rating, 4.05 stars. The challenge prompt for this one was Uneven Bars, a book with an uneven number of pages. This one you can also find on Kindle Unlimited. For as long as they can remember, Jessica, Nora, and Alicia have been told how lucky they are. As young girls, they were rescued from family tragedies and raised by a loving foster mother, Miss Fairchild, on an idyllic farming estate and given an elusive second chance at a happy family. But their childhood wasn't the fairy tale everyone thinks it was. Miss Fairchild had rules. Miss Fairchild could be unpredictable, and Miss Fairchild was never ever to be crossed. In a moment of desperation, the 3 broke away from Miss Fairchild and thought they were free. Even though they never saw her again, she was always somewhere in the shadows of their minds. When a body is discovered under the home they grew up in, the foster sisters find themselves thrust into the spotlight as key witnesses, or are they prime suspects? I don't know why it didn't occur to me when I read this book that my sister's name is Nora and my name's Jessica, so it's kind of funny. I don't think I actually put that connection together before. Okay, so this is my 5th or 6th Sally Hepworth book, and all of them have been 4 or 5 stars, and I find her books to be so incredibly addicting and fast reads. Once I start, I can't put them down. I loved this one. This is, I would say, probably one of my favorites so far by the author. I loved it. I mean, it was really good. She writes a lot of domestic type thrillers, I feel like. This one was a little bit less of the domestic type thriller because a lot of them are set in like neighborhoods, and this one was not like that. So it was a little bit deviating from her normal structure. But so I really think if you really like the neighborhood, nosy neighbor type thing, that type of thing, I think you really like her books as well. This one had so many twists and turns. I love the multiple points of view from the sisters. I loved learning about all 3 of the women. Each of them were so unique and different from each other and just so well developed. Just listening, I loved how they did the multiple points of view too. So we had the past and we learned about them, then they came back to the present time, and it was done so well. You didn't lose anything. The pace really picks up closer to the end, and I found the ending to be so fun and so satisfying. So I know I have heard that some people thought that the book was kind of slower towards the beginning, but I didn't find that. I'm not a huge fan of slow-paced thrillers, and I didn't think it was that way myself, and I've heard people say that during reviews. I thought that the pace was really great. It did really pick up at the end. It was just like boom, 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 which I love when suspense and thrillers are like that and you just get that climactic ending, and that's how this was. It was amazing. Like I said, I think definitely by far one of my favorites from this author so far. Book number 4, Tangled Up in You by Christina Lauren. My rating 5 stars, Goodreads rating 3.99 stars. The challenge prompt for this was part of the closing ceremony, and it is a fairy tale or fairy tale retelling. Ren has never held an iPhone, Googled the answer to a question, or followed a crush on social media. What she has done, read a book or 2 or 3, okay, hundreds, taught herself to paint, built a working wind power system from scratch. But for all the books she's read, Ren has never found one that's taught a woman raised on a homestead and off the grid for most of her 22 years how to live in the real world. So when she finally achieves her lifelong dream of attending Corona College, it feels like her life is finally beginning. Fitz has the rest of his life mapped out. Graduate from Corona at the top of his class, gets his criminal record wiped clean, and pass himself as a rich, handsome player everyone thinks he is. He's a few months short from checking off step 1 of his plans when Ren Gilden, with her cascading blonde hair and encyclopedia brain, crashes into his life, and for the first time, Fitz's plan is in jeopardy. But a simple assignment in their immunology seminar changes the course of both their lives, and suddenly they're thrown out of the frying pan and into the fire on a road trip that will lead them in the most unexpected directions. Out on the open road, the world somehow shifts, and the unlikely pair realize that maybe the key to the dreams they've both been chasing have been sitting next to them the whole time. Oh my goodness. I don't know why I can't speak today. It's kind of a little bit later in the evening. Okay, so this is number 4 in the Meant to Be You series, which honestly I'd never heard of until I saw this book. I believe this is on Kindle Unlimited. Or I know a couple of the books are on Kindle Unlimited. I've never read any of the other books in the series. They can definitely be read as a standalone. This is a modern retelling of Tangled. Now, I've never seen Tangled before, so I can't comment on the comparisons, but I did choose this one. I actually had this one on my TBR because it's a Christina Lauren book. I automatically put all of their books on my TBR, so it was already there, and when I saw that it was a fairy tale retelling, I thought, oh, this is perfect for the challenge. So it actually would have worked for another challenge prompt, which was about road trips, but I do have another book for that. So again, like I said, I can't comment on the comparisons to Tangled, but what I can tell you is that per usual, I will pick up anything by these authors. I love the cross-country road trip theme, the grumpy sunshine romance. It was laugh out loud humor. The chemistry between the main characters was so realistic. It was a clean, sweet romance. So if you like all that stuff, I think this one is definitely for you. I also liked kind of the serious, there was a little bit of a serious side of it. Ren was refreshingly naive, but in such a good way. And it fits so well. It was such a good book. I flew through it. I read it in one day. I read actually a lot of these books in one day, but this one was just, I just loved it. It was so good. It wasn't like the typical, like a lot of Christina Lauren books. Sometimes they'll be very thought-provoking, very like heavy themes kind of within the rom-com type of book. And this one had a little bit, but I think because it's part of this other series and it was a fairy tale retelling, I think it was a little bit lighter type book, but it was really good. Highly recommend. Definitely pick it up. Let me know if you've read any other ones in the series. Are they worth picking up? Because I would love to pick up some of the other ones. Book number 5, Verity by Colleen Hoover. My rating 4 stars, Goodreads rating 4.31 stars. The challenge prompt for this was opening ceremony related to gold or the word gold. Now let me show you. I have this book. Oh my goodness. So first thing I did when I came up with that challenge and I was trying to find books for the prompts, I went to my bookshelves. Now, I did not have my own books in mind when I picked the prompts. I just wanted to pick ones that kind of went along with the Summer Olympics. I saw this book on my shelf and I'm like, this entire book is gold. Now, this is also the collector's edition, and it has an exclusive new chapter. So I had no idea how the original book ends. I'll tell you that the last chapter in this book, it's actually titled, so it just says epilogue 6 months later. And so it like even says like the end right here after like chapter 25, I think. Yeah, 25. And then it says 6 months later. And then we have a whole other chapter that it goes into so much. I can't imagine like if the regular book just ended right there, you would have so many questions. And I'm just wondering like how much longer after did this happen? So tell me. I know a ton of you read this book because that's why I picked this one, because it was so highly recommended, and I'll go more into that after we talk about the synopsis. But I'm super curious. Did you guys read an epilogue in yours? Was that, I mean, is that the new chapter? I don't know. I have no idea of knowing. So let me go ahead and tell you what this book's about. Lowen Ashley is a struggling writer on the brink of financial ruin when she accepts the job offer of a lifetime. Jeremy Crawford, husband of best-selling author Verity Crawford, has hired Lowen to complete the remaining books in a successful series his injured wife is unable to finish. Lowen arrives at the Crawford home, ready to sort through years of Verity's notes and outlines, hoping to find enough material to get her started. What Lowen doesn't expect to uncover in the chaotic office in an unfinished autobiography Verity never intended for anyone to read. Page after page of bone-chilling admissions, including Verity's recollection of what really happened the day her daughter died. Lowen decides to keep the manuscript hidden from Jeremy, knowing its contents would devastate that already grieving father. But as Lowen's feelings for Jeremy begin to intensify, she recognizes all the ways she could benefit if he were to read his wife's words. After all, no matter how devoted Jeremy is to his injured wife, a truth this horrifying would make it impossible for him to continue to love her. So again, I picked this book up. Where I got this was on a book outlet, and like I said, it was the extended edition version, extra chapters. So yeah, I'm very curious. Let me know. This is my first Colleen Hoover book, and the one that has been most recommended to me because of the type of books that I read. I didn't really go into this with very high hopes. I've heard that most of her books contain very highly toxic relationships, which this one did in a way, but from what I've heard is that the way that her other books are written, the male character is a horrible human being who the book is written to where she's wanting us to like and accept the way that this horrible human being treats his wife. So so those kind of books don't interest me, and they would just make me mad. And so a lot of you told me though to read this one because it has that thriller kind of suspense aspect, and that you really thought that I would enjoy it. So this again, and you guys were right. This book was extremely hard for me to put down once I started reading it. The author really knows how to write an engaging story. Had so many like unsettling, suspenseful moments that just like what? I mean, especially when she was reading the manuscript. So the way that this book is written is very, very clever. So we have oh gosh, I already forgot her name. Lowen. So we have Lowen. She goes by a different name kind of in the book also because her pen name, but so we'll have Lowen's side of the story, and then when she starts reading out of the manuscript, it's coming from Verity's manuscript that Lowen finds. So you have chapters that are just things that are happening now, and then it goes into chapter 1 of this unpublished manuscript. And that is so clever, the way that it's weaved in there. And it's like you're reading two different books at one time, but it's done in such a way that you don't lose it. It's just so clever, and it's such a unique way to write a book. And it's literally like you're getting two books in one, but you're not getting lost, and it makes sense the way she wrote it. It is so good. Now, the plot moved so quickly, and I loved the ending. I loved the epilogue that I hope some of you may have gotten. There are some very graphic child abuse scenes, though, that are really seriously disturbing, so definitely just keep that in mind. I did not enjoy the main character, though. I did not like Lowen at all, and it really had nothing to do with the man and kind of the way that he was. It really was just her. I just did not like her. It was so hard for me to like her. But overall, this was such a solid read. I'm not sure if I'll pick anything else by this author unless someone can recommend me one that maybe is more like on the thriller side, more than like, because you guys know I like the rom-com type romances, and then like, so I don't know. Let me know. I will definitely trust your guys' judgment because you guys were all right about this one. So let me know, is there another one that I should pick up? Book number 6, Grumpy Billionaire Chef by Willow Finn. My rating, 2 stars. Goodreads rating 4.15 stars. Y'all, it doesn't have very many ratings on here, so okay. Challenge prompt, 200 meter sprint. A book around 200 pages, give or take 20. This was on Kindle Unlimited. Let me go ahead and give you the synopsis and we'll talk about this one. I always support my brother Peter when he has fishing tournaments, but this time a hurricane interrupts the event and cancels my flight back to Texas. Seth, the stranger chef, is driving back to Texas and my brother pairs us up. I agree, although the chef seems hesitant. I'm having a great time finally making my own decisions. My ex was so controlling, but he doesn't have me now. I'm free and I like Seth. Yet he's a little more guarded, a captivating mystery, but never miss an opportunity for an adventure on a road, and we don't. From unexpected mishaps to encounters with the law, interesting people in a small town, and a drunk, we have our share of adventures. Yet my heart is flip-flopping like it's never done before, and I want to know all I can about Seth. He's a mystery I must solve. So Grumpy Billionaire Chef is the second book in a small town series about the Harpers, the heirs to the Chandler Ranch, and cousins to the Delaney brothers. So if you know any of that stuff, it's a standalone book, has no spice, and definitely happily ever after, although it's a silly happily ever after. So I picked this one up purely because I need a book that was around 200 pages. The original one that I picked up, I really wanted to read. Goodreads told me it was 200 pages. It was actually like more, and so I had to come up with another one, so I found this one on the fly. This book had like 183 pages, but y'all, I felt like I read a 400 page book by the time I was done with it. The pacing was so slow. Nothing happens in the first half, and we're talking this book is only 200 pages, so for the first 100 pages, nothing. The characters have no chemistry, but yet they're madly in love at the end. I know I told you no spoilers. They have the most boring conversations, and then suddenly the ending just picked up so fast, and I felt like, okay, did they realize like halfway through the book that they're not writing a 300 or 400 page novel, that it's only like a 200 page book, and they realized 100 pages in, it's like, oh no, we need to wrap this up, and that's literally what happened. I don't know. This was a no for me. I will not pick up any others in the series. It just did not do it for me at all. And the last book that I read from the month of July, I actually listened to it, and I'm so glad that I ended my month with this book. And I literally finished listening to it on July 31st. So the very last day of the month. This was The Women by Kristen Hanna. My rating 5 stars. Goodreads rating 4.64 stars. The challenge prompt for this was weightlifting, a book over 400 pages. Okay, we're going to read the synopsis, and then we will talk about my thoughts. Women can be heroes. When 20-year-old nursing student Frankie McGrath hears these words, it is a revelation. Raised in the sun-drenched, idyllic world of Southern California and sheltered by her conservative parents, she has always prided herself on doing the right thing. But in 1965, the world is changing, and she suddenly dares to imagine a different future for herself. When her brother ships out to serve in Vietnam, she joins the Army Nurse Corps and follows his path. As green and inexperienced as the men sent to Vietnam to fight, Frankie is overwhelmed by the chaos and destruction of war. Each day is a gamble of life and death and hope and betrayal. Friendships run deep and can be shattered in an instant. In a war, she meets and becomes one of the lucky, the brave, the broken, and the lost. But the war is just the beginning for Frankie and her veteran friends. The real battle lies in coming home to a changed and divided America, to angry protesters into a country that wants to forget Vietnam. So I have heard a lot about Krista Hanna's books over the years, but the size and the content have always intimidated me. Plus, I'm not a historical fiction fan. I have read a few here and there that I've enjoyed, but they're usually so heavy and deep, and like I said, I like to be entertained when I read. But again, I had Audible credits to use up, and so I chose this one for them. It was one of her, I think one of the newest books that was on, that I noticed on Audible. And I really think listening to this instead of reading was the best choice for me, because I don't think I would have been able to read it and get through it. It was an amazing auto book. I don't know who the narrator was, but she was amazing. It was really, really good. Now again, like I said, I read for entertainment, and for me, for me, entertainment is not picking up books that teach me something or are really thought-provoking like this book was. But I will tell you, I was instantly absorbed in this book. I have to admit that I was shocked to learn that the nurses were not considered veterans and that they were not recognized as having been in Vietnam. Like, how many times people said to these nurses, there were no women in Vietnam. I had no idea. Now, I mean, I was born in the 70s, so I don't know. I mean, obviously it was was after the war ended, and I guess I'm just not a history person, and I never really paid attention much in history because it's just never interested me. So I just didn't know a lot about it, and maybe I've seen movies and stuff, but just never really absorbed the impact that was there. I also had no idea how soldiers were treated when they came back. And so, yes, this book really taught me a lot. And after I read it, I actually went and looked up stuff, and just to see how, how factual the book was. Although, I'll tell you, I never listened to author's notes or read author's notes at the end of a book, which I think I may start doing so, because since I was in my car when I was listening to this book, I think I was on my way to work or something, I don't remember, and the author's note came on. I think I was on my way home from work, and the author's note came on, so because I didn't want to be distracted, I just let it go while I was on my way home from work. And it explains so much. Like, she talks about how she actually started writing this book like 20 years ago. And that's how long it has really, like, it was in her mind like 20 years ago, but she knew she wanted to do it justice. And she wanted to make sure that she had all the facts, and she talked to people. She had talked to actual nurses. It's amazing what the research she did. Maybe she does that for all of her books. I don't know. But for this book, it was amazing. So I honestly cannot think of one wrong thing with this book. It was just such perfect, beautiful writing. The characters were great, engaging story. And if you were like me and you have been intimidated by Krista Hanna's books, just do it. I'm so glad I did. I can't see myself picking one up often. I think it's going to be one of those things I pick up every few months. And I may only do them as an audiobook because I feel like that's the way to go into these books for me. And I have to tell you, I finished this book on July 31st, and I did not pick up my next book until today. The day that I'm reading this, I'm doing this book review video, August 3rd, was the first day I picked up a book. I tried to read 2 or 3 other books since I finished that book, and I kept thinking about this book so much that I could not let my mind get into any other book. And it took me 3 days. And I finally was able to get into a book and start reading. It's just, that's how much this book had me thinking. And I feel like it's probably like that with all of her books. So keep that in mind when you go into this book. You may not, if you're doing some kind of sprint reading challenge, you probably definitely don't. I mean, I lost a few days of reading, but it's worth it. This book was definitely worth losing 3 days of reading. So let me know if you read this book. What did you think about it? I feel like it was a masterpiece. It was an amazing, amazing book. And it was the best book I could have ended off at the end of the month. So there you go, guys. Those are all the books that I read in the month of July. Stay tuned for next month's video where I will tell you the rest of the books that I read for the reading challenge. I'll let you know how I ended up doing on the reading challenge, and plus whatever other books that I read in the month of August. So let me know what you guys are reading. Also, if you want to be part of the Facebook club, go ahead and come over and join us. We're just a small little community, and we just talk about the books we read, and we do little challenges like this. So thank you guys, as always, for taking time out of your day to watch my videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.